All right, English 11. The next mini lesson we have is dealing with powerful language. We're actually going to divide this mini lesson up into two different tasks. The first task we're going to do today is picking a moment from the book that really does a good job of showing how the author, Mitch Albom, manipulated the language to create a powerful effect on you, the reader. And then the next part of that activity will be taking a look at the vivid action verbs he used. So that'll be the first part of the mini lesson. The other part I'll talk about in the next video, so we're not going to worry about that part for right now. So, as I said, Savoring Powerful Language is about the different language tricks and techniques authors use to have a powerful effect on their readers. And there are a lot of different things that an author can do. They call these things rhetorical strategies or rhetorical devices. I'll show to you today 5 real basic ones. One of them being poetic language, where the author uses a lot of different poetic sounds to his or her words, such as alliteration, where there's a repetition of initial consonant sounds, or assonance, the repetition of initial vowel sounds. So maybe there's a moment in the writing where Mitch Albom uses a lot of repetitive sounds that was just kind of pleasing for you as an audience member to read. Another thing that authors can do, comparisons, using similes and metaphors. Comparisons are when an author takes two unlike objects and draws comparisons to them. So in the simile, the author uses like or as, whereas the metaphor, the author just compares the two items. Another thing that authors can do, repetition. Maybe repeating a word, a phrase, an object, having something kind of repeat over and over again can ring true for readers and have them remember that thing a lot more consistently. Another one, antithesis, where the author uses polar opposites from one another. And we are going to talk about that in a juxtaposition mini lesson and how Mitch Albom uses life and death kind of opposed to each other. But maybe there's some other opposites that Mitch as a writer is using that are having an effect on you as a reader. The last one I've got for you is irony. The most basic kind of narrative ironies in a story like this are verbal irony and situational irony. Verbal irony is like sarcasm, where you say one thing but you mean something else, whereas situational irony is where you expect one thing to happen, but like the exact opposite thing happens. Think about Mitch's surprise, how everyone's okay holding the beaker for Maury, while Maury has to go to the bathroom and fill it up. That's kind of a situational, ironic part to the story that makes us as readers kind of draw into that moment and see the humanity of that moment. So your first task for this mini lesson is to pick a moment from the book that you are drawn to its language use. So for example, if you go into Blackboard, I've identified an example that I think is pretty good. It's the part where Mitch is describing what it's like to have ALS, and he uses a comparison. He uses a metaphor of a lit candle, and how when a candle is, your body is, actually uses a simile, your body is like a candle. I'm reading it right now. He says, ALS is like a lit candle. It melts your nerves and leaves your body a pile of wax. Often it begins with the legs, and it goes on and on to describe it. But using that metaphor of comparing a body to a candle, and how as the light fades, so does the body. The body melts away. So I think that's a pretty powerful example of Mitch Albom, the writer, using strategic language choice and having an effect on me as a reader. So first thing I'm going to want you to do is identify that part. That's the first part of the mini lesson, the first couple boxes. Then in the middle part of the mini lesson, it's going to ask you, whatever part you've identified, what action verbs are being used, and why do you think he used those action verbs but could have used other words? So for example, I focused on the action verb of melt, the idea that melts, and how that, for me as a reader, helped me understand what Maury's going to go through in ALS. He could have used other words like, He could have used other words like disintegrates, fades, vanishes. It doesn't matter. They're all kind of accomplishing the same thing, but he chose the word melts, obviously, because it goes with the metaphor of a candle. But all those words mean the same thing, that what I as a reader expect Maury to go through is his body is just going to really kind of decompose itself, that it's going to it's going to melt away like a candle's wax melts away. So that's the first part of the mini lesson. Let's do that much today. And tomorrow we'll talk about the very end of the Savoring Powerful Language mini lesson. Thanks a lot. As always, if you have any questions about this or other mini lessons, feel free to email me and we'll go from there. Thanks, everyone.